welcome back to The Funny Thing Is. I am your host, Nicole Birch, where every week we bring you somebody who has a life-changing event. They share the medicine they took to get better and the funniest lesson they learned along the way. Today is no exception. I'm very excited to introduce our next guest. This is actually my first time meeting her. Okay, you guys know her because she started at BuzzFeed. She's a comedian, writer, and YouTuber. She has the hit show, The Kitchen and Jorn Show. If you haven't seen her, check it out. Please welcome Kristin Chirico.
Yay, it's me. Hello.
How are you?
You know, I'm pretty good. I'm not at work, so, you know.
That's a bonus. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
Our friend Jen Sturger put us in touch, and it was very fast, and she's always efficient. And then I started looking up all your stuff, and I was like, oh, absolutely. I was like, how fast can we book you? So
yeah.
Thank you so much for doing it. So how the podcast goes is I will ask you, the first question is if there's a life-changing event that you would like to share.
Sure.
And we'll just get to that right now.
Yeah. Okay. I guess my life-changing event is when I was 13, I lost my left ovary because a complex cyst basically suffocated it while I was on a commercial airliner.
What? Okay. Back up. Okay. So how does that happen? It's not a rupture.
No, it's a torsion. So a torsion is when a cyst basically like suffocates cuts off the blood supply.
Oh God.
Yeah. Like it's because a rupture honestly would have been less dangerous.
Really?
Well, yeah.
And those can be terrible. So I can't even imagine. This has got to be 1 in a million, right?
Well, yes. Yes.
I mean, on a commercial airliner, definitely 1 in a million.
Definitely 1 in a million. I mean, this was, well, okay. The thing is like I grew up kind of being like, this is a freak accident. It's crazy. This happened to me. And then it was like, when I got older and I went to therapy, my therapist was kind of like, this wasn't a freak accident. Like this was due to like the neglect of the adults around you. Like this is not, they kind of, I think they want to think it was a freak accident. And so they kind of like sort of
made you think that.
But like the way you tell this story, there were plenty of opportunities for you to not have this happen to you.
Okay. So what was leading up to it? Let's get, or wherever you want to start.
So I actually, a couple of years ago, I interviewed both my parents about this because like I was very, and I recorded it because I was going to write about it because I was very curious as to like what happened.
Yeah.
Like whose fault is this?
Yeah.
And so basically what happened is when I was, actually I should back up. It was funny when I interviewed my dad was like, you know, I remember some things, but not other things, you know, it was so long ago. And when I interviewed my mom, I started telling the story and she was like, no, back up. You're not starting at the right place. It actually started earlier than that. And I was like, okay, I think I know whose fault it was.
Yeah. Immediately, dude.
All right. Well, so what happened was I had like basically some abdominal pains that were like really bad.
Had you started your period?
So literally 6 months prior to this.
Okay, recently.
And you know, they brought me to the doctor and the doctor was like, oh, it might just be bad cramps, and it just didn't go away.
Yeah.
And then they, you know, I think one night it was during the live season premiere of ER in 1997. I know, a very specific memory. I was like, holy shit, I felt terrible. And my mom was like, okay, so she takes me to the emergency room. And they're like, yeah, there's like a cyst on there. It's like pretty big. But like, you know, cysts, this was, I mean, I don't know. This was also like, this was several decades ago.
Right.
It's possible that imaging is better now than it was then.
Yeah. I mean, my mom got a sonogram with me and I was 100% a boy.
Yeah.
So, and then I came out and my dad's like, where's the rest of them? Like, I don't understand. So like imaging has taken a turn. Do you know what I mean?
It's possible that's kind of what happened, but they were like, it's a cyst, whatever, you know, like just, it'll dissolve on its own. Narrator, it did not dissolve on its own. And my pain just kept getting worse and worse. Meanwhile, we had a trip to the East Coast scheduled so that we could visit my grandfather, my dad's dad.
Okay.
My dad did not want to cancel it. And so we were just like, well, is she that bad? Why don't we just take her?
Oh no.
So they flew me across the country and I deteriorate over the course of that week. Like, it's quite bad. Like, they had to give me a couple enemas because, like, there was any pressure on my ovary was bad. So, like, they basically were like, nothing can be in your bowels. It was like, yeah, it was terrible. It was
who was giving you the enemas?
My mom.
Your mom. Okay.
My mom. Yeah,
okay.
my mom.
I didn't know if you went to the hospital.
No.
Okay.
And like the whole time, my mom is just like, my mom is losing her mind because she's like, there's something very seriously wrong and no one is listening to me.
Yeah.
Like, and of course, like my dad, my parents didn't like each other. So like my dad was just like, you're overreacting.
Yeah.
Like,
you're an overacting woman.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I was like, you're overreacting. He probably didn't want to look bad in front of his dad. He didn't want to like disappoint his father because like his father's also like an emotionally withholding person. And you know, he probably like, but he kind of was just, there was sort of who cares?
Yeah.
Not who cares, but like, it's not a big deal.
Right.
And then on the flight back, I felt like I was dying all of a sudden. Like like just agony. I couldn't sit, I couldn't lie down, I couldn't stand. We found like a flight attendant and like I deteriorated like real quick after we took off. And they saw like how white I was and they like laid me out basically in the back and then they called like, hey, are there any like doctors on this flight? Yeah, I mean, it was clear that something was seriously wrong with me.
Right.
Like seriously wrong with me. They basically like scrambled, found a doctor, like kind of explained what was happening. The doctor kind of was like, probably what's happening is it's probably killing the ovary. I think there's some complicated series of events that communicate this process also takes like a while.
Right.
They kind of decide that they're going to,
because you land and then go straight to the hospital.
Well, so what they decided to do was they didn't like obviously emergency land the plane.
Right.
What they did was they cleared all the air traffic so this plane could land first.
Dang, good.
And so they cleared the plane and then like basically like they kind of strapped me into like an empty row in the back and then like they pulled like I was taken off on a stretcher. And then they took me to the...
I mean, that's like a whole experience in itself. You were literally on a plane when somebody does anybody have a doctor here?
Yes,
you were
and I was the one they needed the doctor for.
It's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And yeah, I was 13. Weirdly, it actually, here's the awful part, is that they I think because imaging was so bad. I went to the hospital. Nothing was resolved that night. I remember going home, which was very weird. And then I saw a gynecological oncologist the next day.
Oof.
And what happened was they examined me and then they told my parents, like, we don't really know what this is. Like, this could be ovarian cancer.
Oh my gosh.
It just doesn't, there's just no way for us to tell until we get in there.
Yeah. Because ovarian cancer, that's the one thing, my grandma died from that. But I realized when I was like, going to get pap smears, I was like, oh, clearly that's what they're checking for. And she goes, oh, you can't check that with a pap smear.
No.
And I'm like, then what do I keep coming in so frequently for? Because I thought that's what I was coming in for. And they're like, no, that's a whole different thing.
There are so many cancers you could get.
There's so many cancers. We're just fingers crossed you don't have herpes. And it's like, that's what you're checking me for? I thought this was like more internal, you know? So that's a huge scare as a parent. Oh my
I know,
God.
yeah.
I mean,
and the thing is, my parents kind of decided they weren't going to tell me until they knew. But
I'm like, do you feel that was a good decision or a bad decision?
What happened is that I think they told the parents of my friends.
Bad idea.
And then the parents of my friends told my friends.
Yeah.
No one told me, but everyone knew.
Oh, man.
Everyone knew and no one told me. And people were like bereft. And so I kind of spent like a lot of time sort of like being like, everyone's so bummed out around me all the time. Like, what's the big deal, guys?
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. I'm cheering you up. And
were they extra nice though, at least?
People were nice. People, I mean, my friends,
that age,
they cried all the time. I mean,
oh no.
I had like a close-knit friend group when I was like 13. I had like and so like there was a lot of crying. There's a lot of like just like a lot of like and then I had surgery. I have like a scar. A gynecologist later described this scar as we don't know what we're looking for scar. It's like, it's not even a C-section scar. It's just right down the middle of my stomach. Where like they basically just like, we're like, we don't know what the fuck we're gonna find in there. We're just gonna do this and just like pull it apart. Like We're gonna goatsy your stomach. Not to use a gross reference from 30 years ago.
That's but I get
it. But yeah, so like it wasn't cancer. It was a complex cyst, which is it was a dermal cyst, which I don't know if you know what a dermal cyst is.
No, what is that?
Okay, dermal cyst has like weird shit in it. It's like, you know those little eggs you get from like the vending machines that have like prizes inside?
Yes.
Okay, it's kind of like that, except all the prizes are teeth and hair.
Oh my God.
Dermal cysts just contain, because like they have stem cells, they just contain like things your body might make, like just a little grab bag of like shit your body might make. Like
surprise, guess what's inside?
Yeah, disgusting.
Teeth and hair.
God. Disgusting. I know, so gross. So it was just that. It did kill the ovary, so they had to remove the ovary. I was in the hospital for like 3 days, and then I was out of school for like, I want to say 3 weeks. I was supposed to be out of school for 6 weeks, but after 3 weeks, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I need to go back. I'm ready to go back.
I was like, this is insane. I can't live my life like this. So yeah, I mean, that's the story of how I lost my first ovary. Hopefully not my last ovary that I lose, but or hopefully the last ovary that I lose. But yeah.
Yeah. So what does that do? Because as a female, I'm curious to your cycle.
So, okay, hilariously, your body just compensates for it.
Oh, really?
So, like, I don't have periods every 28 days. I have them, I mean, I have PCOS, so I don't have periods very often. But when I do have them regularly, it's every like 35 to 40 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so your body basically is just like, well, okay, because you're born with the number of eggs you're going to get.
Right.
And so your body like just kind of is like, okay, well, I only have half the number of eggs now, so I guess I got to like save them up.
Yeah, well, and I think, isn't it like every month it alternates if you have 2, right? And so I was like wondering if you would only have them every other month, but I like that you said it compensates.
Like, I just don't have, I just don't have periods very often. I have like 2 a year and they are terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I have something called Asherman's, and now they think it's PCOS. So it's because I'm like, I've got all those symptoms, which is lovely. Super fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's really an exciting time for me.
It's a good time. Mm-hmm. It's something I'm going to put on, you want to put on your dating profile.
Yeah, I mean, like people really like it when you're infertile. They find it to be, I mean, that was a joke, but like actually maybe they do. I don't know.
Maybe some guys do.
It's like added perks. Nothing in here works. Go to town, boys.
Come dumpster. So after that, because I imagine like at 13, we've had a few guests that have had stuff happen. One of our guests, Matt Gudernach, had lost his mom when he was 14. And so he has a whole show about it, and it's does off Broadway and all that stuff. So, but when you are that young, it's kind of hard because your brain isn't fully developed, or like the emotionality behind it, or how to deal with stuff like that.
I would say so here's the thing. I don't think I ever really got the chance to be a child.
Yeah.
I would say that was kind of definitively when my childhood ended.
Oh.
Like that was pretty, because it was, I kind of knew before that like I was not safe.
Yeah.
But like this was kind of the first time I was shown that like I was not physically safe.
Okay.
Because like, who knows if my parents, oh, not my parents. If my mom had been allowed to be as persistent as she wanted to be, would they have caught this in time?
Right.
Could they have saved it? We'll never know.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but maybe.
Yeah. And she wasn't looked at like the hysterical
basically,
woman.
yes. Like she was looked at like she was hysterical, and she wasn't. She was right. She was right.
Yeah.
And she was like, and it's funny because my dad talks about it, and he was like, yeah, she was like a dog with a bone. I was like, I think she was just like a mom.
Yeah. I think she was a mom and you guys didn't believe her.
I think she was just my mom. And I think that like you just kind of like, I don't know. I think that because there's so many things you learn when you're like when you're sort of thrust into medical situations that quickly.
Right.
You learn like, how to advocate for yourself. You learn like how to like talk about your pain. You learn how to be specific about your medical history.
Yeah.
All these things that like you kind of have to learn to be responsible for, because like you have to talk about them with like some degree of intelligence for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so like you get into practice of basically like being an adult.
Right.
And
also to have to advocate for yourself at 13 is like, come on, man.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It's brutal. I mean, like it's, I think that, it was a fantastic lesson for me.
Right.
Because I kind of also learned that like, not only can I not trust anyone else necessarily to care for me, I definitely cannot trust any one doctor to care for me.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel like I'm being cared for, I need to move on to the next doctor.
Yes.
And it's why I do this little thing where I get like a fake stomach ache every 2 years so I can get like a full body CAT scan. Which like people are like, you're wasting medical resources. Untrue. That CAT scan has caught things.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to do the, what is it? The Pronova or the one that's like $2,500 and it's a head to toe scan. Have you seen that?
No. Yeah.
I want to do that one.
Yeah, you should. I think, cause like, I know this is me being like, I am afraid of everything, but because like there's increase in like cancers amongst like women in their 30s and 40s, especially torso cancers, which are notoriously hard to catch early. Yeah. I am like, if ever, I mean, I had a colonoscopy like a year and a half ago because like I was feeling like a little rumbly and I was like, you know what? I'm willing to exaggerate my symptoms if it means catching something.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, in my side of the family history, we have the ones that, like you said, they're hard to catch. We have pancreatic and ovarian. Same. And so I'm like, and that Maria Menounos, because she was the one who did the scan and they caught pancreatic stage 1. Yeah. And so hopefully, I hope, because she was also adopting a baby that same year. And I'm like, please let her be okay. But it's pancreatic. So you're like, you need to catch that so early.
Yeah. That's why I don't feel bad about this. Because like my maternal grandfather died of pancreatic cancer. And my maternal grandmother died of stomach cancer. Yeah. So like, yeah, three out of my 4 grandparents died of cancer. So I will do my little, I don't feel so good.
Yeah, can you guys check it out?
Help me, please.
I'm just a vulnerable woman.
I'm just a baby. Yeah, because actually I just had a CAT scan done and they found another huge gigantic cyst on my other ovary, which like they weren't even looking for.
And they immediately removed it?
Oh, no. I have to go. It's going to be a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, because you basically have to go and be like, please save it. And they'll be like, okay, maybe if insurance covers it.
Oh, our medical. Yeah, I know. It's all crap. Okay, so what would you say is the medicine you took to get better, to heal from that?
I would say it was a few things. So the great thing about not being able to climb stairs is that your parents let you sleep in their bedroom, which means that you get access to their TV and their cable all night.
Heck yes.
Which means that you can watch shows you're not supposed to watch. In 1997, when I was recovering from this, is when South Park premiered. And wow. I was obsessed with it. And I got to watch it. I got to watch basically the whole season unencumbered.
Amazing.
When all the other kids were like, not being allowed to because they were 13, I was just like, the world is my oyster, baby. Yeah. No one pays attention to me.
I wasn't allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I definitely wasn't allowed to watch that.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Any of those.
No, it was, yeah. And like, I mean, I watched The Omen. I watched like,
oh my God.
I mean, listen, The Omen was on network TV, which is like crazy.
That's insane to think about.
But I watched like a lot of TV and I really, really like, those were my friends and I got to connect with them. And I think like it really got me invested in storytelling and it got me invested in entertainment. And like, you know, it really like saved me during a time when I felt like very isolated because, you know, obviously like people cared about me and people visited me and stuff like that. But like, I don't know if I've met anyone else who's ever had this experience before.
Right.
When I was in the hospital, I was on the oncology wing, and there was a woman, maybe like in her 30s and 40s, who came by because she couldn't believe that there was a 13-year-old on the floor, and her nurse thought it would give her some perspective that her situation could be worse.
Oh my gosh. How did you find that out? Did she say that when you walked in?
Yes.
No.
Because they were just saying this. And I was like, oh, you're right. I mean, you know.
It could be this.
It could be weird. Yeah. So, I mean, like everyone, people say like wild things to you when bad things are happening to you. And so like, you know, I think I kind of learned to self-soothe through like my stories and like, you know, and also like, it's easier to get people to not be weird around you for making them laugh. Right. And I think that like that's you know, something that I kind of started learning at that time because like everyone was weird for like a really long time. And the only way for it not to be like just a constant like sad fest was for me to change it, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's great. What else besides TV? Anything else?
I watched a lot of horror movies. Man, I got really into horror movies.
Ooh, I was obsessed.
I have a bit about how my dad let me watch The Shining when I was 11. It's my favorite movie. Should not have let me watch The Shining when I was 11.
Yeah.
Terrible idea, but maybe not.
I may have you beat. My dad took me to see Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 3.
3
in the movie theater.
Did you even understand what was going on?
I remember the opening scene, because the first one, right? So I remember the opening scene when Freddy's chasing Tina and his arms get really, really long. Sorry. He gets really, really long. And I remember thinking, oh, he's going to give her a big hug. And he didn't. He clawed her up and down the ceiling.
Missed opportunity for
a big hug. You know what I mean? And I remember my mom and dad were going through a divorce at the time, and my mom was like so heated when she found that out. But I ended up loving them. At one point, Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger, I did write him a letter and asked him to be my dad at one point. So like it got a little weird. He
didn't respond, right?
No, I thought it was mailed, and my mom goes, "How would I have his address?" Like 20 years later, she's like, he never got, where would I have mailed it, Nicole? And I'm like,
because you're dating him. I'm trying to convince him to close the deal.
Yeah. What are you doing? I'm trying to bring him into our home. God. So yeah, The Shining though, I feel like The Shining was more psychologically like, Freddy Krueger's like a monster. The Shining, that and The Exorcist, like, messed me up.
The Shining is dark too. Like The Shining is like a movie. It's obviously a movie about substance abuse. It's a movie about alcoholism. It's a movie about domestic violence. It's like I think in retrospect that might be why I liked it so much, because I was just like, I mean, I recognized emotional chaos, and I was just like, well, at least the guy inflicting it dies at the end. Yeah.
There is some type of like recourse for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say, gosh, I think probably like growing up was like my medicine. I think like just learning how to not rely on people to save me, I think, which is like kind of a sad thing, but like, but ultimately also like kept me safe.
Right.
Like it meant that like, I wasn't at like the whims of people who may have like a bunch of other emotional ulterior motives,
right?
Like, and I think that am I like maybe a little bit of a hypochondriac now, perhaps? Yeah. Unfortunately, I am correct.
I mean, given your circumstances, come on. Like of course.
That, and I'm correct enough where it's like, is it me being paranoid, or is it me, having a pretty high batting average?
Yeah, or realistically, concerned. Like that's...
Yeah, I have a nice doctor, so that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And good health care, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I my wife works for Google. We have fantastic health insurance.
Oh, Google's the best.
I know. I'm really lucky.
Yeah. Okay, so just to button this up, what happened when you had your parents on? For like, how did that go? The interview where you interviewed
so them? I interviewed them separately.
Oh, okay. No, are they divorced?
Oh, with a bullet. With like, I mean, I don't know. Listen, those two people, they were married for 27 years.
Okay.
They probably should have been married for, I want to say 8.
Okay. Great.
They hate each other.
Still to this day.
Oh, they loathe each other. At my wedding, they did not interact at all. They had to be seated at opposite sides of the room.
Okay.
They were at my rehearsal, which had, I'm not exaggerating, maybe like 15 people at it. They did not acknowledge each other.
That's so funny. I think my parents were very like Kramer versus Kramer at the beginning, and like all through like my childhood. Now I think they would like, they could be in the same room and tell each other jokes and stuff. Like one time my dad came to pick me up because I'd go to visit in Kansas City. My dad's like, I'll just come get you. So he came to get me, and like there was this moment where him and my mom were like catching up and like laughing and like, oh Larry, are you still getting into trouble? And he's like, you know it. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Weird.
You guys have hated each other forever, and now I'm getting to see how I was created. It's freaking me out.
It's like, don't make another me.
Yeah, I was like, you guys have been divorced since I was 2. I don't remember you guys together. This is tripping me out. Okay, so
weird.
Separately.
Yeah.
So did you get to who was first?
I interviewed my dad first.
Okay.
I interviewed my dad first because I was just like, I think dad has less information. And
yes.
I was correct.
You're right.
I think because he was just kind of like, yeah, I just remember being like really sad. I was like, I was like, do you remember how I felt?
Anything about patient?
Yeah, I mean, he just kind of like didn't really. He just. I mean, granted, like this at this point, it had been 23 years. So like,
yeah,
I could get. Maybe the memory's a little degraded. I think that he was kind of like. He was like, yeah, it happened on the plane. It was crazy. And I was like, that is not where that story starts.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's like, I just was really worried about what was going to happen to you. And, and he obviously, like, I've seen this man cry twice. The first was at his father's funeral. And the second was telling me that he, like, his, like, deep regret over kind of fucking this up
handling
while
it.
drunk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, I clearly, it's like, I'm not going to punish this man any further because clearly he feels terrible about it.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, well, maybe this was like a freak accident. And then I interviewed my mom. My mom was so specific. My mom still has all my medical. She gave them to me, but she had all my medical records.
Dude, she moms like I do. Okay.
Yeah, my mom had everything. She was just like, no, it's not when it started. And then this is what happened. And this is what happened. She was correcting me about parts of the story.
Yeah.
She was like, you were not remembering these things correctly. I even said to her, like, oh, it's, this was, it was the Tom Cruise was on Oprah, like when I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, he wasn't. It was a different guy. Like, I remember that episode. It wasn't. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was like, okay. Yeah. She just like, I think that honestly, it was probably just as traumatic for her as it was for me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, well, maybe not, but
yeah. Closer than you think. Out there.
I think that she kind of realized that she was also kind of alone, that like no one was going to believe her, that like no one was going to advocate as hard as she was. And I think that like she took that really personally. Yeah. Like, because imagine being married to someone and like you believe something about your child is really wrong and that person is just like doesn't fucking get it.
Dude.
It's like up their own ass.
There was my daughter Everly and I, Craig is her dad and we've never been married. In fact, a product of a one night stand. Mm-hmm. So fun. So fun. And I mean, we were friends or whatever, but she had a UTI when she was, which female babies can get a lot because of how diapers and vaginas work. Yeah. Right. So, she had a UTI when she was like 4 months old. And I remember going, something's wrong. And he's like, what's her fever? And I was like, it's 102. And he's like, that's not that high. And I was like, I know, but like, I'm giving her Motrin and it's not or I was giving her Tylenol. I was like, and then as soon as the Tylenol wore off, it would spike again. It started getting higher and higher. He sent me a text that said, I just Googled, and unless it's 107, we don't need to take her in.
What?
And I said, you can meet me at Cedars ER. I'm already on my way.
107 is dead.
It's dead. And I go, what?
107 is literally dead. I
still have that text message, and I'm like, 107? So we get in, and immediately they had to like start like doing the catheter and stuff. And like a catheter on an infant is brutal.
Yeah.
And he's just standing there like, it's all fine. It's fine. And like the nurses are finally looking at him like, who's this asshole? He doesn't know shit, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't imagine if I was married to him, because that's a very different relationship where I would trust his opinion more or like validate it. But at that time I was like, you're fucking wrong. And it was easier for me to say because we weren't together. But it's like, dude, when you're with somebody that doesn't validate that for your own kid, that's gotta be hard.
Yeah, I think that it was probably really traumatizing for her. I would have like it's so funny. My parents are really funny because they're both exactly right about the other one. They both have the other one completely pegged. But they don't. The mirror doesn't turn inward.
Yeah.
So it's hard for them to see the other part. But yeah, they're both like, because
are they both Italian? Because your last name's Chirico.
No, I am my dad is Italian.
Okay.
My mom is native.
Okay.
My mom is mixed native. I'm obviously mixed native.
Do you get, so my dad's side is Irish,
yes,
like straight from Dublin. My mom's side is Italian, straight from Milan.
Yes.
So Irish, Italian, I totally get what brought you guys together, but I also totally get why that didn't work.
Oh, I know exactly why my parents liked each other. I get it.
Okay, you do get that.
Completely.
Oh,
yeah. My dad is emotionally withholding and emotionally immature, and my mom is My parents are gonna listen to this, gonna be so pissed. Whatever. I'm sorry, I'm right. My dad is emotionally withholding and emotionally mature, and my mom is emotionally volatile. And I think that my dad liked my mom because my mom was easy to read.
Okay.
And I think that my mom liked my dad because my dad can be calm.
Okay.
That's what I think. That's like, but like they both kind of like they both have like unresolved shit that kind of makes it so they can't, really be normal together.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I mean, emotionally volatile, I could see why she would like somebody that can be chill.
Yes.
You can't have two. You can't have two. It's two powder kicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the important thing is it's so funny when they got divorced. I remember my dad being like, yeah, I know it's sad. And I was just like, yeah, so this is so, yeah. So this is, whoa.
Oh no, I wanted you guys to stay together.
God. Yeah, it's like, no, I was just,
were you like me where I was like, they were like, a lot of kids, I remember a school counselor was like, a lot of kids think that their parents' divorce is their fault. And I was like, not me. These idiots, they just know they should never have been together. Like,
I was like, I was 25 when they got divorced.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 25 when I got divorced. So like I was kind of just like, why did you wait this long? Like I could have actually benefited from this. Like, okay, now it's just gonna be annoying for me as an adult. All right. Like, yeah.
Now I have to split time.
Now,
Thanks.
I mean, well, at the time I was like, I have to split time. And then I was like, or I could just make my own family.
Yeah. And then they have to come to me.
I know. Luckily, here's the thing. My dad doesn't listen to anything I do or make. So like I can kind of say anything I want about him.
Yeah,
to the point where I've been like putting Easter eggs about him and things for years. And like he never talks about it at all. Yeah. He's always just like, well.
I did my last comedy special came out like in March. And I do a few bits on dad. And I was like, look, there's some that you're going to like. Because I do an impression of him where he makes fun of liberals. I'm like, you're going to love that one. And then I did another one, which I was like doing a caricature of him, which obviously isn't him. And then I did something else where I said, hey, my dad is devout Catholic and conservative. He had 3 kids from 2 different marriages, and all 3 of us had kids out of wedlock. At a certain point, it's probably him. And then my sister goes, none of that bothered him. The part that bothered when you were doing a fake caricature of him, where he kind of looked like a pussy. And I go, but that's clearly not him. And she goes, yeah, but none of his friends will know that. So he doesn't want to tell anybody to watch your show. And I'm like, dude, the one that isn't even real, the only one that I like kind of fibbed the most. That's was like, so funny. And I was like, well, this is the first time he's ever seen me do stand up anyway. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, like I sent my dad, I sent my dad my 5-minute tape and he was just like, this is amazing. And I was just like, finally. And it only took 39 years
for you to see it.
I know. But like, it's the funny thing about my parents actually is that like, the psychological problems aside, their politics are actually pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
Weirdly.
Okay.
Like, like my dad is, I think both my parents are at least liberals. My dad, I think, is a little further left than my mom, but like, so that's kind of at least not like a hurdle I have to.
My mom's has always been, we grew up in Washington, D.C. Like she's much more liberal. And like I grew up with a bunch of different ethnicities where in Kansas, where I was originally from, there was like 2 Black kids in our school and that's it. So compared to Washington, D.C., where it was like only 30% white, I was like, oh, this is night and day.
When I lived in Texas for a long time, which like I know everyone's like, oh no, traumatic. I lived in the Texas suburbs, which like at the time was like not the most diverse, but like pretty diverse. Like I went to school with like a lot of like East and South Asian kids and a lot of
where
in like the Plano, Texas, in like the suburbs of Dallas.
So sorry, my fiance is from Richardson.
Yeah. Yes.
And so all of his friends are, Asian. Yeah.
Like in a lot of Middle Eastern kids and like, so like in obviously like not like a comprehensive sample, but like, not all just white kids.
Right.
When I was 15, I moved to Naperville, Illinois, which is maybe the worst place on earth.
Oh yeah.
It is the whitest town. It is white.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is a horrible nightmare of whiteness.
Naperville,
Illinois. It is maybe the worst place on earth.
Okay.
Like I can't say enough terrible things about this place.
Okay.
And like, like I lived maybe a block away from like a crazy mega church.
Oh no.
Like, and all the churches are mega churches. It's just that some of them are smaller than the others.
Yeah. I mean, it is one, like, if you are at a 4-way cross, there's 4 streets, you know?
Yeah, like, actually,
there's 4 churches.
There are 4 churches, exactly.
Cross, yeah.
I debated talking about when I moved from Texas to Illinois, like, the thing that, like, broke me.
Yeah.
Because, like, truly, I don't think I ever recovered from that.
How long were you in Illinois?
I lived there I went to my last 3 years of high school there.
Okay,
then,
we have similar stories, yeah.
Last 3 years of high school there, and then I went to college for a year in central Illinois. And then I went to school in London because I realized that I needed to run away from home.
Yeah. London's a good place to run to, man. Heck yeah. How long were you in London?
I finished my degree there. So I was there for 2 years.
Okay. What was your degree?
In theater.
Of course.
And creative communications.
Dude, but if you're gonna major in theater, do it in London.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was so fun.
On.
I wrote plays. I drank too much. Oh my God, it was the best. Like, I loved being in London, and I came home and I was just like, and I had to come back to my parents' house in Naperville, and I was just like, this is the worst place I've ever been to in my life. And it still is. It's just, this is a place that, like, during like the summer of 2020, like during Black Lives Matter, like there were a lot of like hand-wringing articles about, like, I cannot believe that this would happen in our city, that people are hurting our beautiful Pottery Barn. Like, they would do that to us. And it was like, it's like,
both your parents still live there?
No.
Oh, okay.
Neither of my parents live there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My dad dragged us there and then, like, just kind of
he's like, bye.
Left.
He's like, this place sucks.
Yeah. My mom lives in Oswego. My dad lives in Montana.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
That's right. My dad lives in a beautiful house in Montana, actually. No, neither of them live there. No, it is a terrible place, and they think it's a great place. It's like one of those places where they're just like, our schools are fantastic, and it's like, yeah, but everyone's white and no one knows anything about life.
Yeah. So and I mean, also, like, when you go to London, you're like, you experience a different type of culture, so to go back, you're like, oh God.
Yeah. Yes.
There's nothing that this place offers.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what is after all that, what is the funniest lesson that you've learned?
The funniest lesson that I've learned, I think, is that often you spend more time dealing with other people's feelings about what's happening to you than your own feelings about what's happening to you.
Yeah.
Like,
that's interesting. Okay.
When what's the thing where, like, it's when something happens to someone, you're supposed to comfort in and then, like, dump out. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like the thing where it's like there's like when something happens to someone, the person who is affected is in the middle, right. And then their immediate, like, their spouse, and then, like, their immediate family,
yeah,
and then, like, their closest friends, and the further friends, and then, like,
outward,
and, like, the idea is, like, you comfort in and you dump out. So, right. Like, the person in the middle can bitch to anyone,
right?
But everyone's supposed to comfort in.
Yeah. Okay.
That is not how I think that plays out in real life.
No.
I think what ends up
even as you were describing it, I was like, that doesn't happen.
No, that doesn't happen at all. Like, no. It's so I feel like I've spent, like, a lot of time making other people feel better about the things that are happening to me.
Yeah.
And that, and including my parents. Like, I spend, like, whenever I talk to my dad on the phone, it's a lot of me being like, it's a lot of me kind of explaining how a thing that I'm talking about that sounds bad actually isn't that bad. It's, like, not a big deal, because, like, it isn't a big deal, but, like,
yeah,
you learn to manage other people's feelings, which, like, isn't necessarily healthy, but it is a good skill,
right? Because
not everyone you encounter in life is going to be a mentally healthy person,
right?
And if you can manage someone's feelings while still interacting with them, you can,
Well, also, and it does breed well for a comedian, because you're literally helping manage the feelings of people. Like, when you say when they're having a hard time,
yes.
It's like, oh, I can make you laugh at this shitty circumstance.
I know. Sometimes I think about how, like, this is a job that I've some way been training for in some capacity for my entire life.
I mean, we just deep dived into, like, my stepmom was a narcissist, and, like, you start realizing I was the helper. I was the parentified helper.
Same.
And so I was literally the one making her martini and telling jokes to lighten the mood. And I'm like, of course I ended up bartending and being a comedian. Like, it doesn't, why am I trying to figure out, like, follow those breadcrumbs?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Same thing. I basically learned as a child that if I just won a bunch of awards, I could diffuse whatever situation was going on in the house. And so I had an activity where, like, I would win an award every Saturday, and I could be like, all right, here's my stop yelling at everyone thing.
Oh God.
Like, but it worked.
It does. But you're like, that's also, like, can be exhausting.
Oh yes. It's terribly exhausting. And I have not outgrown it. But, I think that it is like it's a really hard skill to learn. I think if you don't learn it young, it's really hard to learn when you're an adult.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is like kind of what comedy is managing the feelings of people whose feelings are not really your responsibility.
Exactly. And a lot of, like you said, mentally unstable people too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we all are, right? Like, we all are. Okay, where can people find you?
So I am on Instagram at It's Kristin Chirico. I am also on TikTok at Kristin Chirico. And then I have a YouTube show called The Kitchen and Jordan Show.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You'll love it.
Yeah, it's like it's me and my friend Jen. We are best friends. We eat food. We talk about stuff. We have so many videos at this point. Like, I think people honestly just play us in the background while they're folding their laundry, which is like fine.
You guys, like, I like did a deep dive yesterday, and I was like, you guys are so charismatic and fun to watch together. And like we talked before we started recording, you guys are best friends. And I feel like I'm just sitting there getting to witness all of it.
Yeah. And like people are just like, are you guys friends in real life? It's like, we could not fake this.
Yeah. You can't fake that.
We could not fake this.
No.
Like, it's running a YouTube channel with someone is too hard to fake it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just genuine. It's just great. So so you guys check her out there. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want people to know?
Hope my parents didn't listen to this.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get a text message.
We'll send them an edited version.
Okay,
we'll send them an edited version.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. So thank you guys for watching The Funny Thing Is podcast. Don't forget to follow us wherever you find your podcast and at The Funny Thing Is on all socials, along with at Nicole Birch Comedy. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.